You're listening to Pushing the Envelope, Life at the Cutting Edge of Customs Innovation. I'm Tom Muller with the Cross-Border Research Association. On this show, we explore the frontiers of customs and postal sector creativity in conversations with customs and logistics experts, technology innovators, research scientists, and other leaders in the field. Industry insiders call this show the Pencast because it's part of PenCP, a network for boosting customs innovation funded by the European Union under the Horizon 2020 program. And today I'm speaking with Don Wilkes, the program manager of the Security Group at the Universal Postal Union. The UPU is the primary forum for postal cooperation between governments, posts, regulators, and many other postal sector stakeholders with 192 member countries worldwide. Hello, Don. Thank you for joining me on Pushing the Envelope.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today and participate in Pencast.
No, it's a terrific opportunity for all of our listeners too, and for me to learn more about your work. To start off, could you give our listeners a word on your background and what brought you to UPU and its security group?
Absolutely. So regarding my background, I will condense it just to my professional experiences, which led me to the Universal Postal Union, or as you said, the UPU. For me, I look at it as a straightforward path to arrive at the UPU as the security program manager under the supply chain team here. For me personally, I do feel very lucky to have the opportunity to work at the International Bureau of the UPU here in Bern. This position itself has been supported since 1991 by the United States of America and specifically by the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, or USPIS. Mm-hmm. And that is how I came to be here. So the USPIS has provided secondees to this position since very close to the inception of the Postal Security Group. For me, my professional background is as a U.S. Postal Inspection Service inspector. I entered the U.S. PIS as well as federal law enforcement at the same time in 2006, and I began my career as an external mail theft and violent crimes inspector in San Francisco, California.
Wow.
My time in San Francisco, along with my knowledge of a second language, Mandarin Chinese, allowed me a lot of opportunities in San Francisco. I worked with other federal partners to focus on many large-scale criminal cases, which dealt specifically with mail theft, violent crimes, and focused on the post or postal employees. So my time in San Francisco was really a big building block to hone my skills as an investigator, and it allowed me to move up in the management structure to participate in a variety of task forces as well as global investigations and get my feet wet in that environment. And my final position before coming to the UPU was as a global security program manager in San Francisco, focusing on training and capacity building for the Asia Pacific region and small island nations, creating outreach for USPIS to other designated postal operators or DPOs and external stakeholders. So this actually gave me an excellent footing to work with my predecessor here at the UPU and learn more about the international environment and successfully compete for the position that I'm currently in now. So that's a basic overview of sort of how I started and what allowed me to end up here in Bern for this secondment.
Fantastic. And that rich background and with a variety of different, tasks, including, I've read in your background, external and internal mail theft, mail fraud, prohibited mail, assaults, threats, and physical security. And then going on to coordinating work with numerous federal agencies and external stakeholders. That does sound like an excellent preparation for dealing with a bunch of different constituents, at the UPU.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and that's a good way to see how the rest of the world works, and then be able to put yourself in their shoes when you're dealing across the table.
Absolutely, and allow that collaboration and relationship building, which is so important internationally as well as domestically, and pretty much everything we do.
Fantastic. Just out of curiosity, how did you come about mastering Mandarin Chinese?
That's my personal story. I was trying to keep it brief, but I actually lived in China for 8 years, and I did many different jobs and wore many different hats there too. But it allowed me the opportunity to understand the culture, the history, as well as the language. So it was definitely a benefit when I started my professional career back in the States.
It does sound like you have the universal and universal postal union in your blood, which is a key thing. So what have you been, in a nutshell, what have been your priorities over the last several years at the UPU Security Group?
Oh my goodness. Okay. we have quite a few. So since I arrived at the UPU, besides just trying to gain an understanding of the differences and nuances involved in working in a UN specialized agency, which is very different than working in a U.S. federal agency, we've had a variety of priorities. When I first got here, the UP was in the process of finishing out the Istanbul Congress cycle, and that's a 4-year cycle where there's, the business plan and key strategies. And we were also in the midst of a potential exit from the Union by the United States, it was quite a challenging time, actually, and it was a time which was very insecure as far as this position went, because if the United States left the Union, that would mean this position would no longer be funded by the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. So that meant I basically had 1 year here, as far as I knew, to prepare this position for another country potentially to take over and mitigate any challenges that might be caused by the U.S. leaving and any gaps in security and safety knowledge.
Oh, wow.
So
the ability to deal with uncertainty is important in every job, but you really have it in spades, I guess.
So it was definitely a very trying time, and that sort of led up to an extraordinary Congress, and it was only the third time in the entire history of the UPU, which an extraordinary Congress was held in Geneva in 2019, and it all worked out. The U.S. obviously stayed, and there ended up being an agreement where the U.S. would provide a specific amount of funding for a 5-year period under that Congress. So it's actually been a benefit to the Union as well as the member countries, but there was a lot of challenges leading up to that. We also had, of course, the worldwide pandemic, which everyone was dealing with, and that also skewed our priorities, which we originally had, and caused us to pivot again towards other relevant aspects, such as, risk management, continuity planning, to assist our designated operators in their pandemic operations and recovery. But now, since January of 2022, we've entered the Abidjan Congress cycle. So we have a new Director General and Deputy Director General, and we began with our current business strategy and priorities for this 4-year Congress cycle, which ends in December of 2025, which sort of gives everyone a clean slate to start anew in this 4-year period. And of course, some priorities will always remain the same, which involves ensuring the postal supply chain is safe and secure, to ensure no harm comes to postal employees, customers, or anyone involved in the supply chain. That's a consistent factor that we will always have. But this cycle, we have a very strong focus on the mitigation of illicit goods in the postal supply chain. And this is a priority of the Postal Security Group, which was established by our members. And it involves continued capacity building and outreach with external stakeholders, as well as our member countries and designated operators, to find where we can build that necessary capacity and improve on the mitigation of illicit goods within the postal supply chain, as well as road safety was another priority set by our Postal Security Group for this cycle. So those are two of our main focuses, along with others. Of course, we actually have 18 deliverables which are set at Congress, and we work towards them each session, and we are actually well on our way to completing them by December of 2025 as required.
Wow. You have a full plate, for sure.
We do, yes. I couldn't do it without our members and designated operators. I definitely depend on them for their support and guidance and work as well, because it's more than a one-person job, that's for sure.
That's for sure, and we'll go back to a little bit to your very busy few recent weeks. But I'd like to jump to what you mentioned about illicit goods. I noticed recently on the UPU Security Group webpage that illicit narcotics and cash are listed as target materials, and I guess I thought traditionally that those were more sort of for customs and police. Can you explain why and when the UPU started to really focus on these?
Sure. You are correct. The UPU Security Group webpage does contain information on all types of illicit goods, and we do have a focus on narcotics and cash, which are listed as target materials. We want to ensure that our DOs are aware of all the illicit goods that can be in the mail stream and are trained on all aspects of illicit goods identification and work together with their customs authority, national police, or law enforcement authority, as well as any other entity which has a role in mitigating these items in the supply chain. So that's why the UPU includes these items there, because while this is traditionally customs or police purview, the Postal Service does have a responsibility to ensure the supply chain is safe and secure for all. And often the first individual to look at a postal item will be a postal employee. So they do need to understand what they're looking at, and they need to understand who they need to call if there's an item that should not be in the postal supply chain. And relative to narcotics and cash, these items are prevalent in the postal supply chain, and it's incumbent on all players in the supply chain to recognize the trends and risks in their country and region and build working relationships with customs and national authorities to mitigate these items in the supply chain. And when you think about it, what better partners to have in the fight against these items than postal employees who are on the front lines each day and can provide important intelligence and assistance to their customs and law enforcement in executing their specific mandates to keep the supply chain safe.
Right. No, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. As you say, they're often, the postal employees are often the first people to see these goods. Is it a challenge to motivate and obligate, motivate and then hopefully obligate postal workers to really join the fight against trafficking and smuggling of these goods? So
I think with every other profession, it's been a lot of reduction in workforce and the phrase do more with less, so to speak. So the postal employees that we encounter are motivated to keep the supply chain safe for their customers, for themselves, for the transport providers, but often they don't necessarily have the capacity to do what is really required, because like everyone else, there's fewer people and there's always a reduction in workforce, and things fall by the wayside oftentimes. So I don't think it's a lack of motivation. I think it's a lack of capacity.
Right. Yeah. And do more with less is hard to combine with 18 deliverables and new priorities coming online every year. So yeah, I wonder that sometimes the challenge of both customs and postal and related fields, that you really are being asked to do a great deal more with fewer resources and fewer people.
Yeah, and as you said, customs officers are in the same position as well, because with the increase in e-commerce and the day-to-day shopping habits, particularly in the pandemic, we saw it there, where it was just, you can't sort of seize your way out of things. There has to be a lot more capacity building and customer sort of acknowledgement and understanding of what they're purchasing and better behavior just by the customers in general. And then there also has to be improvements in analytics and looking at the electronic advanced data and being able to profile and red lane, green lane sort of specific items that may be containing illicit goods or things that should not be there. But it's definitely very challenging if you need to look at every single small parcel that is crossing the border, inbound or outbound.
Wow. Yeah. It makes my head spin, especially as you say, with the spike in e-commerce during the pandemic, just the sort of the cherry on the cake of big challenges. Yeah. I've noticed also in reading about your activities recently that your training initiatives are clearly a big part of your mission. Could you describe some of your more recent training initiatives or upcoming ones and what they achieve or aim to achieve?
Absolutely. As you said, we do have quite a few training initiatives. So let me see where to start. They're definitely a key part of the UPU mission and something that I personally hold very close to my heart because I actually started out as a teacher in China. So some of our recent initiatives have been in Zanzibar, Tonga, and Cairo. And these were some of the physical trainings we conducted through the UPU. And they were specifically focused on security certification, physical security understanding, as well as mitigation of illicit goods, primarily new psychoactive substances, identification and mitigation. And we work with our external partners, a World Customs Organization, as well as the International Narcotics Control Board, or INCB, to conduct those trainings. We have other departments which also provide support and training on specific issues relative to designated operators. For postal security specifically, we focus on assisting our designated operators achieve S58 and S59 security certification. This is the bedrock of the mandatory minimum security standards, which is codified within the UPU Convention Article 8. So we do encourage all of our DOs to apply for this certification, and we provide not only in-person training, but we also have a virtual training platform called TrainPost. This has an advanced security certification training available on it currently, which was just recently created last year. It's available in English, and through the external funding that I talked about from the United States, the U.S. Tide Fund specifically, we are currently working with an external provider to translate that training into all other UPU languages by June of this year. So we are able to, so it's going to hopefully continue to build capacity worldwide for those countries who English is not a primary language. And we're also working with that same provider who created the advanced training to revamp the basic security certification training, which will also be available on TrainPost. And again, we're going to roll that out into all UPU languages before the end of this year. So what we're hoping to do is utilize these virtual trainings to help build that capacity first. And then when we have our future physical trainings, we can do more hands-on activities or tabletop exercises to really ensure that the baseline of the virtual training has been understood and it's able to be put into practice in the region, in the specific countries, and worldwide. So we're hoping, and we believe that since this is sort of the way that all trainings seem to be going, that these virtual trainings will help increase understanding and capacity for all of our DOs, and also ensure that whenever there is turnover in the post or in positions, which happens in all organizations, individuals can be easily trained on site through these methodologies. And TrainPost is one of those platforms that not only covers security certification, of course, it includes disaster risk management, contingency planning, operational aspects, revenue. So they're all free of charge to our designated operators. You asked about our training initiatives. We have quite a few. I'm just going to pick another one. We also have some training initiatives specifically with the security group that we collaborate with again, an external stakeholder, Interpol. We've had Interpol's IP Crime Investigators College, or IPSC platform, is another excellent virtual training tool, which, due to the UPU's longstanding MOU with Interpol, I think we started it in 1995, so very recent, shortly after the Postal Security Group was created, the UPU has been able to collaborate with Interpol over a very long period of time. And based on that MOU, we created a virtual training pilot program in the Asia Pacific region. And during that training pilot, over 56 individuals were trained in the illicit goods mitigation customs program. And this program is a comprehensive 12-module course, which was opened up specifically to our postal security focal points free of charge. And we did have very good feedback from those participants, and it's led to further collaboration with Interpol and IPSC. And we expect to soon be rolling out this same type of course in our Middle East and North Africa regions, because this course is already available in all other UPU languages. So it'll be able to be rolled out in both French and Arabic to that region and to our countries that are in that region. And we're also looking at the potential to roll out the newly created IPSC counterfeit lithium battery training to English-speaking countries, because that is the current language which it's available in. And this counterfeit lithium battery training was actually created in collaboration with subject matter experts from Underwriters Laboratory, or UL, the UPU, and ICAO. So we try to access or provide sort of training where it's available and utilize our external stakeholders to help increase our capacity and build upon what we have available here at the UPU. We also work with INCB, I said the International Narcotics Control Board, to facilitate an understanding of their GRIDS program and Ionics platform, as well as their virtual training, which we provide a link to from the UPU Postal Security Group landing page. We've had a cooperation agreement with INCB since 2018, and we recently renewed that cooperation agreement until the end of the Abidjan cycle 2025. So we've had a lot of successes with the work which we've been able to do with INCB on NPS mitigation. We also try to consolidate reference material and educational information in the Postal Security Group SharePoint, which is available from the landing page of our Security Group web page, but it is a controlled access site for Postal Security Group members only. So as you can see, we do try to leverage all aspects of training, which is available and free of charge to designated operators, to give them the opportunities to identify what their challenges are and to utilize the resources which the UPU and all of our partners make available.
Yeah, your collaboration and networking, you said, were a key part of your work in the UPU, but clearly the UPU itself is collaborating and networking with other, Interpol and INCB and other organizations to extend that network. And that's smart, working smart, doing more with less, as you say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just for our listeners' benefit, if they wanted to learn more about TrainPost and the other online resources that you have at your disposal, would they go to the UPU Security Group web page, or is there a better way to do that?
So for everything that deals with security, they would go to the Postal Security Group or the Security Program webpage. For the TrainPost, that would be under our capacity building sort of drop down or website. I would say that I think you've had some opportunity to take a look at our website. You notice that there's quite a lot of information there, and sometimes it takes a little bit to find different things that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. But my suggestion would be definitely to take a look at the capacity building, as well as the postal supply chain. So those are the two that have the most relevance, I think, for the listeners of the Pencast, and would be potentially the best to gain some additional knowledge.
Excellent. I'll be putting together a sort of a how-to guide for reaching these resources, and I'll make sure to focus on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, this is, as you say, you have to shorten and compress your answers for every one of my questions because you have a lot going on. It's quite exciting. I'm going to ask you to do it again. Just off the top of your head, a few of your core activities at the UPU security group that you've been working on personally since your tenure began.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I can list 5 that grab my attention, and you choose whichever couple you feel like. Digital services, technical cooperation, trade facilitation, standardization standards, and sustainable development. Those are 5 that popped out at me, but as you say, you have a lot going on.
Okay. So I'll just sort of riff on those a little bit. As you know, and as I said initially, my focus is specifically security and safety. And in order to get my work done here and those deliverables, I work within the supply chain. And that is under the Department of Postal Operations at the International Bureau here in Bern. So that just gives you an overview of the structure. And to accomplish the goals established by our member countries within the strategic Congress cycle, there are many other directorates in addition to the Department of Postal Operations. We don't have a lot of employees. We have about 284 employees here at the International Bureau. That includes our secretariat staff, and they work to assist our member countries on all aspects of postal operations, which include digitalization. And that is a priority within the postal sector for us. And as we talked about evidence during the most recent pandemic, we found that this was not only a priority, it was a necessity. And within the International Bureau here, we have the UPU Postal Technology Center, or PTC. And what PTC does is they provide a variety of products for DOs to ensure digital services are a part of their everyday component, as well as ensuring the transmission of electronic advanced data accurately and in compliance with established UPU standards. There's quite a few products that they do provide. I am not part of the PTC, so I don't want to speak too much about them, but under the technical solutions of the UPU website, those who are interested can take a look and see exactly what's available and what type of services the PTC provides for our members. We also have, in addition to security under the supply chain, there is the transport group as well as the customs group. And we are all concerned with digitization, particularly the transport group, because as you know, the mail moves with a lot of paper forms, which have a benefit of being digitized. So quite a few member countries have been working on pilots to digitize these forms, these UPU forms, and work with air operators as well as customs, of course, to see how we can improve this digitization. We also work with ICAO on some of these aspects too. We support their digitization efforts, and we're involved in some of their conversations on these aspects as well. I think, as you know, with certain industries, there's a traditional way of doing things, and it's often very hard to change very quickly. So the process takes quite a bit of time to change old standards or ways of doing things. So this has been in the works for quite some time. We also recognize, that technical cooperation is a necessity to reduce the postal divide between industrialized and developing countries, to ensure that information exchange is created through not only cooperation between the Supply Chain and Postal Technology Center, but with the UPU Quality of Service team. This is another group that works with our members to help bring them sort of into the environment that is needed to help exchange data and improve their functionality. So I'll talk. One of the ongoing large-scale projects that we have now to facilitate this technical cooperation is what we call the Quality of Service Common Fund. There's 145 countries that participate in this project, and the main objectives are to ensure proper training, to provide equipment, and ensure compliance with UPU standards to ensure effective transmission of electronic advanced data from postal operators to customs authorities. And this is to ensure that all postal operators are able to comply with the requirements to provide ITMAT and PREDES messaging on all items containing goods to countries which require EAD. This project, it's been quite a successful project in all regions worldwide, and it's been able to increase EAD transmission rates exponentially within these 145 countries since the inception of the fund in 2019. This project will be concluding actually within the next several months this year, and we're in the process now of making a plan for countries which may still be not providing 100% of ITMAT and PREDES, which is required for items containing goods. So it's definitely there's a few others too that are right here in the Department of Postal Operations. As you said, the world economy is driven by the micro, small and medium enterprises, and the UPU, again, through the Quality of Service group, in order to create and build understanding and capacity for our postal operators, has what they call operational readiness for e-commerce. And that's the ORE project. It's been ongoing for several years, and it's currently in phase 3. So they call it the ORE 3. And it works in specific regions of the world, or operates in specific regions of the world, to create understanding, capacity, and a platform for e-commerce, which guides postal operators in the creation of their own e-commerce sites and helps to build that capacity for SMSEs, underrepresented members of society, women, also to assist customers within the region to build capacity to help drive that region and world forward, to assist those who may otherwise be left behind. And that's something that the UPU, as a UN specialized agency, works hard to advance, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. So that is, they're also our priorities as well.
That's very, very exciting. I'm trying to think how you approach, as you said, certain industries are very traditional and they're attached to their forms, their ways of doing things, their metrics for success in their career and so on. So getting postal services around the world to digitize and then to get good at exchanging that digital information must be a real challenge. Just interpersonally during your trainings and so on, what are the strategies that you use to motivate people and to kind of break through the wall of bureaucracy that can sometimes rise around, traditional industry?
Yeah.
If you're allowed to talk about that.
It is definitely extremely challenging to sort of break down those walls. And sometimes it's not, as we said before, it may not be the individual or the post that is unwilling or unable to move forward. It may be a prior policy or a national regulation or some sticking point which may not allow data exchange, or it may not allow certain data to be exchanged, which is something that we encountered at the UPU while I was here. The challenges of actually being able to exchange that data between countries. So it's been a challenge to bring everyone forward into this age of data exchange and required data exchange, to sort of do it the right way and to have the proper agreements in place to be able to ensure that everyone is protected and doing what they need to do when they need to do it. And our customs group here has been integral in sort of driving a lot of these efforts forward and working together with the different member countries and the legal team here to build the multilateral data sharing agreements and other aspects of the global postal model to help create sort of that base that's available for countries to utilize and to further build their bilateral arrangements with other postal operators or customs authorities as well.
Fantastic. That's, when you have 145 countries in your quality of service common fund, to take an example, getting people aligned is a challenge, but at the same time, you probably have a sense of a certain amount of peer pressure, a certain amount of working together, and an excitement of introducing new technologies and new ways of working that balance the weight of the past.
Absolutely. And some of the things that have sort of assisted us over the past year and a half has been, again, the U.S. Tide funds, which has allowed us to, as well as the Common Fund, which have allowed us to be able to employ, project management officers to assist managing the Common Fund project, as well as the U.S. Tide funds, to bring part-time consultants on board, which we call our regional postal security managers, to help work within their regions on a country-by-country basis to go over the electronic data transmission rates or non-transmission rates, as well as guide the posts in the mandatory minimum security standards and help them develop potentially the continuity of operations plan if they didn't have one, or how to create a risk assessment. So being able to engage with individuals that we can, and we only have them for 20% of their time each month, so it's not a lot of time, but that amount of time has really increased our footprint worldwide, rather than just having individuals here in Bern trying to reach out to countries in different parts of the world to try to understand what their issues are. So it's really been a boon for us to have these regional postal security managers in region who know the individuals that they're talking to, and they may be experiencing the same issues at their post as well, because these individuals are actually selected from designated operators within their region, and they have the permission of their chairman or CEO of the post to work with the UPU for 20% of their time. We do compensate them for it, and to help build the network within the region. So it really has been something incredible for us here in the supply chain to utilize these individuals and their knowledge that they bring to the table.
That completes the first half of my conversation with Dawn Wilkes, Program Manager of the Security Group at the Universal Postal Union. Tune in next time as we continue our discussion about the future of customs and postal innovation.